Everybody, thanks so much for listening to the Pastor's Perspective program. Try saying that 5 times fast. We are here today ready to answer your questions on the Bible and the Christian faith at 888-564-6173, 888-564-6173. Brian Broderson, the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, is here. So is Bobby Conway from oneminuteapologist.com. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in.
Well, it's great to be here. Yeah, it's good to be out.
It sure is.
In the beautiful, sunny, warm Southern California weather.
Yeah, we've been
the way it's supposed to be.
Fortunate today because it has been quite rainy for the last few weeks, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a nice couple of days. That kind of, with the rain combined with the COVID lockdown and everything.
Yeah.
It just got
Did it make for a nice pairing?
A little depressing, right? But, yeah, this is nice. And unfortunately, I never made it out today. I was going to try to get out and do a run, and then I got locked into some things, So, but I did make it here to the studio.
Thank you.
Here I am. And I'm going to go to the market afterwards. And I got my mask to wear because in my city now they decided that wearing a mask is something everybody must do in my city, Costa Mesa.
Yeah. Well, we're fortunate because in ours that hasn't happened yet. So maybe you can move down to Laguna Niguel.
I might.
Just keep moving further and
maybe
further.
We'll move in with you guys for a few weeks
That's
until
right.
the ban is lifted. It is kind of funny, though, how it's just sort of random. This city's doing this, that city's doing that, this one's not doing this. And, you just wonder. I mean, sometimes you feel like, is everybody just guessing? This is just like a big guessing game.
Well, what if you're driving through town and you decide to stop in, it's like, oh, let's go in here real quick. You're in Costa Mesa or something.
You better have
and
your
say,
mask.
you don't have a mask. I didn't need one in Huntington or whatever the case
That's
might
true.
be.
That is true.
Yep. 888-564-6. Oh, have you heard from your friends in New York? Are they doing
well, the last update I got was the one I got yesterday, yes.
Okay.
So, which I did get an update on Liz after the program, and she was okay. She's kind of, Jimmy had a stronger case, so he was feeling quite a bit worse. And she was still, somewhat mild in comparison. So, yeah. I mean, they're good. I think they're going to come through it fine. But, it's like, it's so funny because in some senses, like for so many people, it's just basically like you got the flu. But then for some people, it's deadly, right? We know that. But for some, it's like, I got the flu, and well, tell me about the flu. It's like, well, it's kind of like the flu.
Yeah.
It's good. I have body aches, and I have coughing, and some cases my breathing is a little strained. So, yeah, I don't know. I just thought about just how strange all of this is. It's just strange.
It's a bizarre time, no doubt.
Totally bizarre.
I think all those memes on the internet are what's keeping us happy, because some of those are really good. Some of those are hilarious.
I saw a great somebody posted a little kid singing "Everything's Gonna Be All Right," and man, he just made my day. It was like that was enough to just make it like, all right, I'm taking this from this little guy.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was like,
cool.
He looked like he was like 3 years old or something, but man, he was.
But it worked
He
out,
was singing it with all of his heart, looking right in the camera. It was just like, oh, this is so good.
How fun. 888-564-6173. Want to say hello really quick to our Southern California audience listening on KWAVE 107.9. Today is KWAVE's 35-year anniversary. April 15th, 1985, we signed on, as KWAVE. And man, what an amazing 35 years, 12,784 days of preaching the gospel to Southern California. And 306,816 hours. That's amazing.
Wow.
Well, except for that 1 hour when I fell asleep. But we don't want to talk about that. But yeah, that's just amazing. All these testimonies we've had through the years in the last 35 years.
Yeah, I remembered that there was something special on Wednesday, but I couldn't remember what it was. I was thinking it was like a special guest or something. So thank you, Brian, for remembering what it was. 35 years ago, I remember the day. And I remember, actually, going with Chuck, Pastor Chuck, to kind of negotiate, in the early stages of trying to purchase a station, going and being part of that with
Yeah.
him. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And then my radio program came on a few months later. So I think I was one of the, part of that first group of guys that came on with the radio broadcast. I think back in those days, I think mine just came on the weekends for probably the first year or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we were looking at an old program guide, and there are a lot of pastors from 35 years ago that are still on. It's amazing. Some of them the program titles have changed. Like Raul Reese, his used to be called Manna for Today.
Yeah, right.
And now it's Somebody Loves You, but he was on at the very beginning. Of course, the Word for Today, Chuck Smith. Who else? I can't. Oh, Greg.
Yeah.
New Beginning was on.
Right.
So
but it wasn't
all
called
these
New
guys,
Beginning back then.
It might have had a different title then too.
I think it did.
But and Skip's program was Calvary Connection.
Calvary Connection. Yeah.
Yep. But just amazing.
Yeah.
And we'll see what's going on now. I mean, 35 years later, now we're doing internet, we're doing podcasting, video, everything. So it's not just this little FM station in Southern California anymore.
We're dyeing our hair. We can still.
Well, I know for me, I'm so thankful for this radio program as a new convert to Christ, and driving down the freeways, I can just remember listening to KWAVE. In fact, when I worked at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Dana Point, my life had been changed. I've come out of drugs and alcohol at that time. And funny enough, they gave me the nickname Reverend there, which I was the kid you didn't want your, children hanging out with. And now I'm getting called Reverend. Well, they were worried about promoting me to bellman because they didn't want me evangelizing people. But when I was in valet, I got in trouble because people started complaining. What's the deal? Every time I get my car, this valet driver has it turned to KWAVE 107.9. And so they had to talk with me at the Ritz about not turning on KWAVE 107.9.
Yeah, look at that.
That's cool, man.
Bobby has been promoting K-Waves for 30
That's right.
years. That's amazing.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I've heard similar stories. People go to the people that work at a car wash and they'll set it on 107.9 or they'll rent a car and they'll put it on one. I've done that before. When I rent a car, I'll just put all the little presets on 107.9.
Well, there was a guy who, he was such a great guy. His name was Dan, and he was in his 90s, and he still worked at Hertz. He had worked at Hertz for 70 years or something.
Yeah.
So I think he was one of the original guys at Hertz.
It was putting on the Hertz.
Yeah. But he was there, and he would do that. He would program the cars to K-Wave. And that was kind of his ministry, so he'd tell me little stories about things. But, I've met a ton of people over the years who rented a car and heard the station and listened to the preaching and came to faith, and then later told the story about, I got in this car and there was this radio station on and I just started listening. I got hooked, and so amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And because of the internet, now people who are on vacation, they come in here, they listen to the station for a week. They can keep listening when they get home by going to kwave.com or by downloading the mobile app for Apple and Android. Really cool.
And that's another totally amazing thing, right? I mean, so we, it's KWAVE 107.9, a Southern California station. Over the years, we've had we had a network of stations across the country. We had almost like 500 stations, or maybe even more at one time. And then that kind of went a different direction. But all that to say, man, when the internet finally came into its own, and everything just developed one thing after another, I still marvel. I just marvel every day at the app. I just think the app is the coolest thing in the world, because you can literally be in any part of the world, download that thing, and you can tune right in and listen to us. Yeah. And what a trip. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whoever would have thought K-Wave would be global.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. And if we can hear all the stories, it would just be phenomenal. Becoming a Christian apologist, the first time I heard the word apologist was driving down the 5 on my way to work at the Ritz on the freeway, and it was on K-Wave. And I heard this word apologetics, and I showed up, and one of the bellmen at the Ritz was a Christian, and I said, I'm confused. What does this word apologetics mean? And that's when he said, well, it means to give a defense. And that's what Calvary's been committed to for 35 years, giving a gospel defense. Yeah. And I'm just so thankful that, for the ministry that it's had and the souls that have been changed and saved and the marriages that have been helped and the parents that have been helped. And thank you, Brian, for your ministry. All these years of just teaching the Bible here and just faithfully proclaiming the truth. And it's nice to see that you're still loving the Bible and loving the Lord. I think that young leaders, and in particular, just these emerging teens, they need to be able to look to an older generation that didn't compromise on truth. And if that's anything that KWAVE has offered, it has just stood fast to the truth of Scripture. And that's what's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember a similar kind of a thing. It's so funny. I can remember exactly where I was in my car. I had exited the 5 onto Oceanside Boulevard. And because I used to live off Oceanside Boulevard, but I remember getting off the freeway and I was listening to Walter Martin at the time, and Walter Martin was really brilliant, but he was really gruff too. He was really he could just be like the rudest guy in the world.
Make you feel stupid for asking a question.
Yeah, totally. And I remember this thought went through my head. Man, if I ever did anything like that, I would just make it a point to be nice. That's the one thought that came through my mind. Never thought I would do it. If I did it, I would actually try to be nice. So that's always stuck with me. So if sometimes I'm not nice, then just remind me of that.
I was going to say, for the most part, you do a really good job of answering the questions and not getting gruff or losing your temper.
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
Because that really is a turnoff sometimes. You know? And that, like I said, Walter Martin was so brilliant in so many ways, but that was always like the one thing where you're just like, man, this guy needs to get it together. He just needs to be nice to people. You can have all the answers and still be nice.
That's right. And even that's the apologetic formula right there in 1 Peter 3:15. It talks about doing this endeavor with gentleness and respect. And that's one of the dangers. This isn't like, I didn't know Walter Martin personally, but I would just say in general, when people think of apologetics, it has had a bad taste. And I'm so thankful for the apologists that I know that are just very kind, very nice. I think that the emerging generation of apologists realize the importance of that gentleness feature. And hopefully, and the other thing is, apologetics at times was so overly rigid and black and white, and it was like defending everything. And now I really feel like we're defending mere Christianity. We're not overly black and white where we don't need to be. It's more compassionate and gracious, and all of that I think is a wonderful thing.
I totally agree. I think the tone in the your generation and guys just maybe a little bit older than you, it really did change at some point for the good. And but there was a kind of a reputation, and Walter Martin sort of led the charge. But I think guys modeled themselves after him, so they were just pretty hard nosed about stuff. But not to speak ill of the living who are no longer among us.
No, but to see a positive change, and then while recognizing that there was a lot of good that comes out of that. And you know what? People will look at our generation and they'll evaluate and they'll recognize, I won't be surprised in some ways, just we'll start seeing these different things emerge. Like, oh, maybe our generation's been too casual and conversational in our teaching style, and we need to get back to the, extra expressiveness, or who knows what the things will be, but there'll be stuff.
Yeah, you never know, because there might be somebody listening right now saying the same thing. If I ever did something like that, I wouldn't be as nice.
Yeah, that's right. I wouldn't be as casual or whatever.
888-564-6173 is our telephone number today on Pastor's Perspective. Give us a call if you have a question. Let's do a couple of Facebook questions really quick. This one's from Christy, who's writing in about her sister who's going through stress, anxiety, loss of appetite. She's walked away from her marriage. She says she has to take care of herself now. She says she's not sure what's going on inside her, but she's on a journey. She's having visions about things around her. She thinks her dead grandmother might be leading her in a certain direction. She had a lot of sexual abuse as a child, had an event recently that triggered all of this. She calls it a spiritual awakening, but Christy says, I know it's not from God. It doesn't sound right. How can I help? Is what Christy wants to know about her sister.
Well, that's hard. And, does it say whether her sister claim to be a Christian, or
no?
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't say that. Just that she feels like she's undergoing a spiritual awakening, is what her sister says.
Well, I mean, opportunities to speak to her. Maybe you can just obviously you should pray for her. Use this if she's talking in terms of a spiritual awakening. This could be an opportunity to help her go in the right direction spiritually. And I mean, the things she's saying obviously sound like she's having a nervous breakdown is really what it sounds like she's having. And she might be, but, maybe try to get her to realize that and to get some help. But then in the midst of that, also to share the gospel and, that there isn't a dead grandmother leading her around anywhere, but there's a living Christ who will lead her life. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are really hard. It's not like you can, okay, here, write these 5 things down and then tell her this, and it's going to be okay. These are the types of things that you need to really approach just with a ton of prayer and asking the Lord to give you the words to speak when the opportunity arises. I always think about what Jesus said even to his own disciples, that there would come a moment when they would stand before the authorities and so forth. And he said to him, he said, don't even premeditate what you're going to say, because it won't be you who speaks. It'll be your Father speaking through you. And I think there are times for Christians where that's really, we're sort of shut up to that. We don't really know. I don't know what to say. And I mean, I can be in a situation where I'm 5 seconds away from opening my mouth and I still don't know what to say. And I'm just praying, Lord, please fill my mouth when I open it, speak through me. And it's amazing how God will do that, So that would be my number one word of advice to her.
Anything to add?
No,
Bobby?
I think that's great.
All right, Christy, thank you for sending in your question on Facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective. And here's one from Michelle in Fullerton. My question is from Revelation, which one of the verses says that both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave will be marked on the right hand or the forehead. I was wondering, what if they got marked on the left hand? Is that the same thing? If they had a chip installed in their left hand, why does it specifically specify the right hand? Does it matter, I guess, is what Michelle wants to know.
Well, it'll probably matter to those who are giving the chip, right? They're not going to let you put it in the left hand.
Yeah. I think with some of the chip stuff that goes on, the discussions can really get out there.
And the chip, even saying a chip is an assumption.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's a mark. That's what Revelation talks about. There's a mark. And we have, kind of based on our current place in the world with technology, we've kind of concluded, well, that sounds like it probably would be a computer chip. But now people are even saying, no, that's already dated. That's past. It's not going to be a chip. It's going to be something else.
Yeah, some people even worry about getting these immunity cards like, oh, is this something that has to do with it? And I just don't think it's gonna be that. It's going to be a sign of I reject Christ.
Yeah, and it's going to be led by an antichrist, not just like, oh gosh, there he is. Look at him. Look at those horns. That's the Antichrist. No, it's going to be led by a system that is
that's right,
Antichrist, in the truest sense. That Christ has no place in this universe. So we're going to make sure. And this is, I always think of the mark of the beast is really you're pledging your allegiance to the beast. You're saying you're my. It's almost like we have no king but Caesar.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like, no, we reject this man. Caesar's our king. And that's really what the Antichrist will be. People rejecting Christ and saying, no, we're going to follow this guy. He's got a mark. We're going to take it. Yeah.
Yep. And it's funny that you say that we don't even know if it's going to be a microchip. And every generation seems to have their own thinking as to what it might be. Like when Social Security numbers first started getting passed around, everybody's like, no, don't apply for one. That's the mark. So, just you never know. Michelle, thank you for sending in your question. We've got another microchip question here from Rudy in Lake Elsinore. Hi there, Rudy.
Hey, Brian.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
So it's similar to what you guys asked. So I once heard Pastor Brian, I once heard Bill Gates was talking about putting a microchip. Is that the mark of the beast?
I don't think I don't think Bill is the Antichrist, so no, I don't think that's the mark of the beast. Look, they already have chips. They've done chips in animals, right? They've done it in pets, and they keep their records, in some kind of a microchip inserted somewhere into their skin. So people have assumed that, well, that's going to happen with people. And, it might happen with people, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the mark of the beast. Again, the mark of the beast is tied to a person, a very specific person. It's not, and the way I read Revelation, it is implemented when he has come to a position of recognized power in the world. So until you've got one person that's pretty much the recognized authority in the world, then you don't have the mark of the beast. It'll come after that. And the mark of the beast will be, it will be kind of the brainchild of the false prophet. The false prophet will come up with the idea that, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make an image, and the image is going to be worshipped, and we're going to give everybody a mark, and they can't buy or sell without it. And that's a really interesting thing, because you think of economies, and that is an economic strategy right there. You can't buy or sell. Could you imagine that? I mean, we're talking about COVID. Some stores, they say, you can't come in here and purchase anything without a mask on. Yeah. If you're not wearing a mask, sorry, we're not going to serve you.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a thing where the whole world, it's like, if you want to buy something, anything, you got to have this mark.
Yeah.
And if you don't, sorry.
You're host.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's heavy stuff when you think of all of those factors coming together. I'm actually reading Revelation right now. I'm in I read chapter 11 today. So 12 and 13, man, those are those critical chapters. Yeah, that's right there. I mean, we're right there with the beast. So, but when I read it, I just think, this is the book of Revelation for me in the last probably 5 years has become more. It's funny because I have more appreciation for it, and I stand more in awe of it now than I ever did in my whole Christian life. And I've taught it many times before, but man, I look at it now and I think, man, this is true. These words are faithful and true, man. It's just when you read the prophets, I'm teaching Isaiah tonight, and it's a little bit hard to navigate these prophets, right, Bobby? Because they're talking about, and my point is going to be that Revelation is the same way in some senses. They're talking about things that are immediately happening. They're talking about things that are going to be in the not too distant future. Then they're talking about things that are going to go all the way out to the end of time. And sometimes it's hard to differentiate between where we're at in their prediction. And sometimes you just have to look at the context and you realize, like a lot of the stuff with Israel, so I'm in chapter 44 and hopefully 45 of Isaiah tonight. So part of it is the assurance of God to the nation. Cyrus is going to come. He's going to liberate them. They're going to go back to Jerusalem, and then they're going to, they're going to rebuild, and it's all going to be good. But then it says things like, and there'll never be a problem again, and God will reign. And you're like, okay, well, that did not happen, right? So what does that mean? Does it mean it's not going to happen? No. It means that was the part of the prophecy that was projected out beyond that. So that was like a little shadow of the greater thing that's going to happen. And so the book of Revelation is, in a sense, it has the same sort of thing. You look at it and you see, wow, you see these patterns of what's happened throughout history. But then you see it all start to culminate in these things. And Revelation 13, again, is the place where you've got this is, the idea is some people say, well, what is this one world government thing? Well, Book of Revelation teaches a one world government. There's a one world leader, a one world economy. There's a one world religion. That sounds like a one world deal. Mm-hmm. Now, we've been talking about globalism for years now, right? As the world's talking about globalism. And you could say that even some of the political conflicts, I think you could even say that the political conflict that exists in our country between, say, Trump and people who think like him and others is a conflict between globalism and, in a sense, nationalism. Mm-hmm. So Trump's national. I'm going to do stuff for America. These other guys are like, forget America. We want to be the world. We want to have a global thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, we know where it's all going. It's all going global, ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Funny enough, when when I started the Calvary Global Network.
Yeah.
Oh,
People a little worried about that,
Oh, okay. That you might be the Antichrist, or
might be thrown in my
your chip.
yeah.
You know, one thing about this chip, though, Brian, that I really think, I mean, this would be a controversial topic, but for me personally, understand I'm saying this personally. Number one, I wouldn't see this as, the mark of the beast if this happened. I could see some potential wisdom that when a baby was born, that there was a tracking chip implanted in children, not for the sake of control, but we live in a world where can you imagine? I mean, you'd think twice about kidnapping a child. Now, you'd have to place it in different spots or something like that, or it'd have to, I don't know how they'd figure it out where somebody wouldn't be able to locate it. But I could just see, we did that with our dogs, right? We put a tracking chip in there. So if the dog goes missing, we can report it and they go, oh, it's over here.
Your dog has a chip?
Yes, the mark of the beast. No, it is. Well, it is a mark of the beast, the dog, but it's not. It's the canine beast, right? So, but here's the deal. Aren't we thankful that our phones come with capacities that can let us locate it when it's missing? Well, I'm just talking about if a criminal escapes, I think it could cut down on crime, and it would have nothing to do with that. I'm going, I wouldn't fear having a chip put inside of me because I don't have it any intention to do anything wrong.
And that's how they're going to sell it as a good thing.
Well,
and everybody will.
That's the thing, and that's why all of this has been incremental. It doesn't come on you out of nowhere. There's a preparation process, so you get used to it, So then this is just the iPhone 12, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
We've gotten used to it all the way up to here, but now in the next model, this new feature is going to come in, and actually you're going to have to get a mark on your forehead, and then when you hold your phone up to your face, it's going to see the mark, and then that's how we're going to know it's really you, and then you can use your phone, right?
But the mark seems to me that it won't be we're putting this mark to track. You'll know if you're getting it that this is
absolutely
you're pledging allegiance here.
You'll know
Christ.
and one of the reasons we know that is because there is no. It's the point of no return. You cross that line, and you can never go back. Right. So you can't have crossed that line ignorantly. You can't have somebody says well, what if I didn't want the mark, but they made me take it? No, it doesn't work that way.
So here's a question for you: is the mark of the beast basically equivalent to the unpardonable sin?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it has to be right because if there is no forgiveness for those who do it, but what is the unpardonable sin? It's the rejection of Christ, right? Exactly. And this is kind of like I'm going to reject Christ and I'm going to wear it.
Yeah.
I'm going to show everybody.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Wow. How did we get off on that?
I don't know. You took us there, bro.
It's all Rudy's fault. Rudy had the question. But no, even before Rudy, it was Michelle. So, but good conversation today. Thanks so much for joining us on Pastor's Perspective. I'm Brian Perez here with Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway, taking your calls on the Bible and the Christian faith at 888-564-6173. Almost time for our commercial break, and then we'll get back to your questions. 888-564-6173. You may have heard Pastor Brian a little bit ago mention that he'll be teaching tonight in Isaiah. That will be at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, but you can't show up in person because of all the orders and stuff going on. Is it an order? Is it a suggestion? I don't know, but don't show up. Either way, just watch it live online from the comfort of your own home. live.cccm.com is the website address, and that begins at 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Mountain, 9 o'clock Central. I think I got that right. So that's live.cccm.com beginning at 7 p.m. Pacific. All right, back in a moment with more of your questions at 888-564-6173. That phone number again, 888-564-6173, 888-564-6173. In the studio today, Brian Broderson of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, and Bobby Conway from OneMinuteApologist.com. Haven't told you about their books in a while. Brian's latest is called The Powers of Darkness and the People of God. You can get it on his website, backtobasicsradio.com. Bobby's got some books as well, 5 of them, in fact. I've only got 3 of them here. But books like Does God Exist?, The Fifth Gospel, and Doubting Toward Faith. You can find those at oneminuteapologist.com. All right, guys, ready for more questions?
Yeah, really quick.
Yes.
So tonight at 7 at live.cccm.com, that's our midweek Bible study.
Yes.
And we are in Isaiah tonight, so tune in if you would like to. Love to have you join us tonight. And also wanted to just throw out another mention of the Women You Should Know podcast that premiered yesterday. And I think it's gotten out there to quite a few folks. But you can find that podcast at graciouswords.com or CherylBroderson.com, which is the same site, or CalvaryChapel.com, or the Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa Facebook page. I think all of those places it's posted there. And it's really a fantastic conversation between Cheryl and Jasmine Allnut, who is Cheryl's assistant, and they have a great conversation about a great missionary lady named Gladys Elward, and it's really enjoyable. I loved it.
Yeah, I listened to it this morning before I came to work, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really. We talked about this yesterday, that hearing about the stories of saints gone by, not just the ones recorded in the Bible, but just the ones since then, and just the different things that she went through to become a missionary. I thought it was funny that, she was, at first, she read about the need in China, so she was trying to recruit people she knew. Hey, you should go to China. They were like, no, I don't want to go to China. Right. So it turned out she went.
She was the one.
She was the one. Yeah. So that's good.
Those are faith stories and they're faith builders, because they remind you that, hey, God does work in people's lives, and He still works in people's lives, and we can count on Him to do it. We can expect Him to do it. So highly recommend it.
Yes, indeed. All right, 888-564-6173. Next, we're going to go to Zachary in Rancho Cucamonga. Hi there, Zachary.
Hello. Yes, thank you, pastors, for taking my call.
Sure.
And I did have a quick question for you. I was calling because I heard on the news that FEMA is now in control has higher power than the president. And my question for you is, with everything that's going on, with everything that's lining up with the biblical prophecy, everything with technology advancing and everything, what are your opinions on FEMA being in control with the New World Order? And is there any verses you recommend that will help me kind of figure out where to go from here?
Maybe the book of Philemon, because it sounds like FEMA. You think? No, I'm joking. Is FEMA mentioned in the Bible?
No. So, Zachary, this is the kind of stuff that you have to really be careful about confusing with Scripture and prophecy, because, for one, prophecy it centers primarily around Israel and God's promises to Israel. And so America is not mentioned in prophecy. The prophetic picture is generally the Mediterranean world, although it expands beyond that ultimately at the end, but it doesn't give any details about anything beyond the Mediterranean world. So when you start trying to read, American politics or our governmental structure or any of those kinds of things, or COVID for that matter, into some kind of prophetic biblical scenario, you're just not going to get too far. I mean, you can go a long ways with your imagination. Some people do that, but you can't really go far with Scripture, because Scripture doesn't. There's no scriptural references to any of this stuff. The United States, our form of government, with our Congress, with our judicial, with our executive branch, none of that's mentioned. So FEMA having usurped authority over the president, I don't think that's true, actually. But, even if it was, you're not going to find anywhere in the Bible where it talks about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible, when you think about, it is just the way I think it naturally falls that you are a creature of your culture and of your context and of your period of time. So you can easily become xenophobic unintentionally, where you just think the world sort of revolves around your culture.
Yeah.
So, and this is, America has this, I think American evangelicals actually have this built in, like everything that happens in America must have some biblical significance to it because, after all, we are America.
Yeah.
But, in the grand scheme of things, again, America doesn't show up in Scripture, so we're not really going to find anything that we can say, yeah, that's the prophecy right there, of John Lennon getting shot in New York City, right there in the Bible.
We have to be so much more careful as
Elvis
it relates
dying.
to this, because this stuff happens. People will run everything through the American grid. And, you can imagine other world powers throughout history doing the same type of a thing, like in Rome or other places throughout history where people start thinking, oh, the end's about to come because this happened. Or I just imagine how, there's so many countries, and think of the Christian countries, and then anytime something happens significantly in their government, are they wondering if this is it? And then in America, I think some of the books that have been produced has helped push this. And this is known as concordism, where you try to create a concord between Scripture and you look at the newspaper in another hand, basically, and you're trying to always read that together. And the more people spend time thinking about this, and the danger is we keep bringing all these creative thoughts to the table, and then we have to clean all that up. And I think we would I wish we could create a way to just say to the world, that's all these things that we're saying, who the Antichrist is. Is it Hitler? Is it Saddam Hussein? Is it the Pope? Is it there has been so much speculation and books written on this stuff. And I just think it can make us look silly. It can make us look goofy. It takes us down the wrong pathways. Yeah. And people throw their hands up and they don't even know what to believe about this. And I think someone like a Zachary or others, they mean well. A lot of times they're just reading books and it's sparking this kind of creativity, but it is not good exegesis, and we need to be able to really slow all the speculation down, because I get burdened by the amount of speculation out there, and I'm thankful that you're being a voice of trying to slow that down too, Brian, because this is a mess.
Well, yeah, we have to, because history, it just repeats itself over and over again, because I've lived long enough now and been in ministry long enough and have been around this long enough to know that, there have been so many predictions that were made, and sometimes very, very specific, that just
Dates.
Never materialized.
Exactly.
And so you have to learn a lesson, and the lesson is not that these things aren't going to happen. The lesson is, though, we're not going to know all of the details in advance. Some of the stuff is not going to be known until the people that are in the middle of it, they know it. It's like, oh, wow, this was written for them. It wasn't necessarily written for us. So, yeah, I think we really need to be careful. And, talking about just how sometimes you can see everything through the lens or the grid of your own nation or culture or whatever. I remember one time I was preaching in Europe, and I was in Germany, and I was preaching on the end times and, the Antichrist and all of that. And I was talking about the Antichrist rising up out of Europe, which I still believe is actually the case. But afterward, these guys came up to me, these German guys, and they're like, oh, the Antichrist is from America. He's not from Germany. I was like... they were like, so
they threw the Antichrist our way. Huh?
They did. They're like, what are you talking about, man? He's coming from America.
Yeah.
So, it was like their lens was, they were looking at their lens. The Great Babylon was across the Atlantic. The Great Babylon was America. And,
the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, we're over here looking at them going, oh, that's right there, the sinister thing. Hitler came from there, and Mussolini and those guys. So, the Antichrist is going to come from there too. I think the Antichrist is going to come out of the revived Roman Empire. I think Daniel 9 says that. So whatever that looks like in its new form is yet to be seen.
And you could see, let's say Christ didn't come for another 1,000 years. And let's say America falls in 2250. Well, Christ comes 750 years, let's say, after 2250. So America's been fallen for over 700 years, and there's another world power in place. And you can think of all the speculations that went on in our time. Well, that's the same way with other cultures in the past. They've had hyper fixation on that. Yeah. And Jesus warns us, we don't know the day or the hour. Yeah, he tells us to be aware of some of these signs, but my goodness, some of the signs that he tells us to be aware of are the ones that are unfolding during the tribulation. So you'll know it's transpiring. So,
Zachary, thanks for your call today on Pastor's Perspective. Bobby, you also mentioned that maybe Zachary's been reading a book or something, and that's what led him to, believe. And it reminds me of something I was going to say in the first half of the program when we were talking about KWAVE and its 35-year anniversary. There's so much stuff out there in books and especially on the internet and YouTube and, there's 1 Minute Apologist, Bobby Conway. He's on YouTube, but he's one of the good things online that you can find. But there's so much out there that somebody can easily find something, start watching it, and then their mind just goes. The thing about radio, like KWAVE, is we vet who's going to be on. That's not to say that if somebody's not on KWAVE that they're not good, that it's not biblical
It just means
doctrine.
they're probably not.
No,
No, I'm just kidding.
no. But the thing about radio is we try to find we try to make sure it all aligns with what we believe, not with just these theories that somebody can just upload a video and boom, all of a sudden they've got 1 million people watching it.
Yeah. Well, remember that Zeitgeist movie that came on to the internet a few years back? That thing was totally, just every conspiracy theory, every warped, distorted perspective on Christ, trying to make Jesus, another Horus or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it was like none. It was like there was zero truth in any of it. It was laughable. Yeah. But people just took it hook, line, and sinker. Like, well, this is the gospel truth. Jesus was, Horus before him in Egypt. Horus was born on December 25th, born of a virgin. Had taught the teachers when he was 12 years old. Had 12 disciples. Was crucified, died, rose again. And people are just eating it up. And you look at history and you're like, no, never happened. But people are gullible and. Yeah, these things get out there. So we, the safeguard against everything is always to go back and have a good, strong biblical foundation. And when you get a good biblical foundation, then you know your parameters. You know that you can, there's some times where you can push the limit a little bit and you can speculate. You can say, well, based on this could happen. But I can't say this will happen unless it states clearly in the text that it will happen. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes, even though it states it will happen, it doesn't necessarily tell you how it will happen. So you're like, okay, well, this is going to happen, but I don't know the details of how it is going to happen. So we start thinking like we talked earlier, like, well, the chip, it's going to happen because, a parakeet got a thing in a chip. And that's it right there. We're on the road to the Antichrist. So.
Well, I think that stating that you're speculating is a good thing too. Yeah. And just a word to maybe a Zachary or others out there, we certainly aren't picking on you in this way, and we wouldn't want you to feel that way. I asked these type of questions a lot before I was discipled and stuff as well. So we think it's great that people are asking questions, but we want to recognize that we have to be more careful. And so here's some thoughts that I would just say as it relates to being more intentional in how we think about things. Remember that we live in a soundbite culture, and lots of people are influenced by Twitter feeds and Instagram and sound bites. And that being said, we have a real danger to form premature opinions and come to conclusions prematurely. And so I'd say we need to make sure that we continue to check our sources, that we continue to fact check. I think that we should be teaching students in schools today what good journalism is, even if they're not going to be journalists, just so they can at least know how to properly vet information, because of the way that we live in a culture where people put out a tweet or put out stuff. We believe things way too quickly, and then we get disillusioned as a result, and it puts us in this mess where if we're more proactive, be good Bereans, as the scriptures talks about. So I'd say weigh things out in that way, be more thorough, as it relates to things. And don't be myopic in the way that you listen to news or even listen to Bible teachers. Don't just listen to people who reinforce your views. Look at other sides, because sometimes you'll find that one camp is just harshly judgmental to another camp. While they might be right on the other camp's doctrine, they've lost their heart for the people within the other camp. And we have to be able to listen to other people in order to understand where they're coming from. And it just takes time. And it might not be as satisfying as just reacting to Twitter feed and pushing it forward, but it is more satisfying to be informed properly.
Yep.
All right, 888-564-6173. Here's Robert in Garden Grove. Welcome, Robert. You're on Pastor's Perspective with Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway.
Thank you for taking my call. I'd like to congratulate you guys for your anniversary today.
Thank
you
you.
say 30 years?
35.
Yeah, thank you.
35. Oh, wonderful. My question has to do with Genesis 11 and the Tower of Babel, and particularly between verses 6 through 9, where the Lord said that nothing will be withheld. I mean, particularly nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Yet he decided to confuse their language and scatter them. And I'm not sure of the significance of the Tower of Babel and its meaning. Can you simplify that for me?
Okay, Bobby.
Well, God wanted people to spread out. And what was taking place in Babel is they weren't wanting to spread out. They were wanting to stay together. And here, this is in, ancient Mesopotamia. And as they're in Babel, in that region, they're just trying to build a tower. And they're just, trying to work together. They're not spreading out. So when God says that he is going to confuse their language, and he does, he disperses them. And why is that? Well, as we see in Genesis 12, God is going to raise up Abram, who's going to get the name Abraham, and Abraham's name means the father of many nations, and you can't be the father of many nations unless there are many nations, and they were trying to be one nation, and so God confused their language, spread them out, so that the prophecies could be fulfilled ultimately through Abraham, that he would be the father of many nations, and that people throughout the world would get an opportunity to hear the gospel, whereby Jesus would come and die for the sins of the world. And so civilization was supposed to expand, and they were in opposition to it.
What do you think, Robert?
I'm sorry?
What do you think of that answer?
Well, why then did the Lord say that nothing they propose will be withheld from them? I see it seems like it's conflicting to me.
Well, because of what they was intentionally in their hearts to do, which was rebel against God's will, God's just making a statement that they're gonna go all the way with that, but he's gonna slow down the process by judging. So Babel was a judgment. It was a judgment that scattered them and took them away from their singular objective, which was, essentially to kind of overrule God's rule. They're building a tower to the heavens, which seemed to indicate a ziggurat. It was like a worship place. So it was kind of almost stating like, well, we're God. We're as good as God. We don't need God to tell us what to do. And so this is God's judgment on them. But the evil intent that's in their heart, God is just acknowledging that they will, without restraint, they will fulfill it. And we can kind of see that as history goes on. That there is truth to that. And then, when you think, you ever think about this, Bobby, the interesting thing is, so you have, in a sense, a one world system at Babel, and then God breaks it up.
You do, yeah.
And now everything's moving back toward that, though. So this is...
That's our desire, isn't it, to kind of figure out how to universalize something.
Yeah.
And what I see happening there, when it's saying, oh, nothing will be too hard for you, it's not like, oh, they're real powerful or anything like that. It's just if God doesn't intervene in judgment, then their hearts are going to get so hard. Yeah. They are going to be so blinded, so outside of God's will, and he's going to intervene so that his greater purposes could be fulfilled down the road. So sometimes judgment comes, and it is because people have currently been rebelling against God, but he intervened so that his greater providential promises could be fulfilled.
Robert, thanks for your call. Next, we're going to go to Nicole in the hills of Chino. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi.
Hi there.
I have a question concerning hell. And please correct me if I'm wrong with what I do know. Hell is a place where we will be judged according to our works, and it's a place created for Satan and his fallen angels, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth, and the worm doesn't die. What I'm not sure is if Abraham's bosom still exists, and I'm not sure if the unsaved souls will be cast into the lake of fire with the beast, Satan, and the false prophet, like it says in Revelation 20:10. And I really would like to tell people what the Bible says will happen to them the moment they die, if they die in their sin.
Okay. Pastor Brian?
Yeah, it seems that this is a little bit blurry, but it's not blurry in regard to a believer, because we know that a believer, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. To depart and be with Christ is a far better thing. So Paul made that clear in writing to both the Corinthians and the Philippians. And so we know that a believer goes directly into the presence of God. So what about the unbeliever who dies? It seems like the unbeliever who dies goes into the place that the Bible calls Hades. Hades is basically would be kind of like that compartment that's described in Luke 16, that there's the one side is Abraham's bosom. You referred to the place of comfort for the righteous dead. But now that has been evacuated. There's no one there because of the resurrection of Christ. But the other side of it is a place of torment, but it's temporary. It's kind of like what jail is in compared to prison. So if a person, say for example, has been given a life sentence, they've been in jail before, awaiting their trial. They go through a trial, and then they're given their life sentence. So the Hades is sort of like the jail time. And then you have the great white throne judgment, and then you have the final judgment, the life in prison, which would be the lake of fire. So I don't know if does that help you?
Yes, it does. So they will be cast into the lake of fire?
Yes, they will be cast into the lake of fire. It says there in Revelation, that those whose names were not found in the book of life were cast into the lake of fire, where the beast and the false prophet are. And ultimately, the devil is cast there as well.
Anything to add, Bobby? Did you say wow, Nicole? Did you say wow?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would want to add, as it relates to hell, when we do talk about it, that we understand the way the language is being used there. So you'll see, outer darkness, but then eternal fire. Some would say that, okay, these imageries, like if there's fire and then there's darkness, then how does that work together? If you're in outer darkness and there's fire, it seems like you would see something. And where this worm never dies, I wouldn't say that there's this literal worm just kind of like creeping around in hell. I think what Jesus is doing is he's using human language of torment and anguish, and he's helping us to see how hell is going to be a place of just torment. And I don't think it's like that there's literally you're sitting in an oven with a worm and you're in a fireplace for eternity. But rather those are imagery to help us understand how agonizing it is to be separated from God, to be given over to your own ways, and to be left to yourself, knowing that you could have placed your faith in the Lord Jesus.
Yeah. But lastly, thank you, Nicole, for that question. She mentioned it, and this is the two things about hell. One, it's real. Secondly, it wasn't created for human beings.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus specifically said that hell was created for the devil and his angels.
Yep.
So the reason people go to hell is because they reject the Savior and they follow Satan.
Mm-hmm.
But if you turn from following Satan and turn to the Savior, then hell's not for you, never was for you. You have your place in heaven as you follow Christ.
Yep. And where can people find out more about that, Pastor Brian?
In the Bible, John 3:16.
Yes. That's true. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes should not perish but have everlasting life. Thanks so much for listening to the program today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, 3 to 4 p.m. Pacific time. For Brian and Bobby, I'm Brian. Have a good night. God bless.